Okay, welcome to another episode of Bland Gaming. Today we're going to be reviewing Coriolis. What is Coriolis, the Third Horizon? So, again, a little disclaimer about my channel. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm filming this not in a studio, but actually in my dining room here. There will no doubt be interruptions. I want to discuss Coriolis with you as if you were sitting here having a beer across with me, but rest assured there will be doorbells ringing, dogs barking, and children undoubtedly needing something throughout this and everything. So think of yourself as a guest in my home as we discuss Coriolis, the Third Horizon. So, if you've watched my channel before, it's no mystery to you that I am a huge fan of Free League games. Coriolis was the third title that I had purchased. The way that I got into it, the way that I got very interested in it, was when I was at the time, I was playing Tales from the Loop, and I was also playing Mutant Year Zero. And, I look at the Free League website and what have you, and so... I saw this book, and those people who are into marketing, listen right now, because art, what do you need? Told you we'd have an interruption. What do you need?
I'm having Alex, Jason, and Jackson working through Blood Rage.
Okay.
And then I will clean it up.
Okay, got it. Okay. So, one of my children actually came by, saw me doing my video, and saw fit that he needed to interrupt me. So, I'm not even going to reshoot this because we're just keeping it real here. So, anyway, Coriolis. So, I was looking at the Free League website, and those of you in marketing, I cannot tell you how many games I have said, what's this? Or, oh my gosh, sometimes I've even just pulled the trigger on it and said, I'm buying this, right? Just from the art alone. And the art on this book is amazing. This is up there with Martin Grip art, which I enjoy so much, which is part of their Symbaroum settings and from the Alien settings and everything. The art's just amazing. So, and I had heard good things about this, read some, that it had won some awards and whatever. So I was like, well, what is this? What's this? Obviously, looking at the page here, it's obviously a science fiction book and everything, a science fiction setting. So, in summary, what I got to tell you about Coriolis is what if, the political intrigue and the mysticism and prophecy of Dune went out and had a date with the emphasis on crew and ship and also factionalism, yet hard science of the Expanse. And then it also kind of had the ship interaction, the idea where we're following a ship around as it calibrates around the galaxy and what have you, and has its misadventures and stuff of Firefly. Then what you're going to get is you're going to get Coriolis. I am not a fan. I am a fan of fantasy. I am a fan of science fiction. I am not a fan of titles that kind of try to mix both. I'm not big on Shadowrun. In the miniature world, I'm really not a Warhammer 40k kind of guy and everything. So, but I will say that one of my favorite books of all time is Dune. And Dune definitely mixes the religious part of it and a sense of prophecy and mysticism, but then it also has more pulpy science fiction, while I feel like the science fiction of Coriolis is more of hard science fiction. What I mean by hard science fiction is more like The Expanse or like Aliens, where they're still using ballistic, or like the new Battlestar Galactica, where they're still using like a ballistic they're still using ballistic weaponry. They really try and explain space travel in it. It's a very interesting setting. So let's talk about Coriolis. So in Coriolis, the whole premise behind the idea is that this big giant colony, well, actually two of them, these big giant colony ships leave Earth, and they're headed to this system that's called, I believe it's called the Daberon system. And they're, it's going to take them hundreds, thousands, what have you, years to get there. Big fan of the maps. This does not come with the game. I ordered this separately. Absolutely love it. I highly recommend picking this up. So anyway, so these two big giant colony ships, they travel, and it's like, I can't remember if it's 100 years, it's 1,000 years or whatever, but it's generations. There are generations that are living on these giant colony ships to colonize this cluster of stars that they call the Third Horizon. Now, obviously, the first and the second horizon were the two, colonizing arms and everything that humanity has already had. So, when these two big giant colony ships get there, they find that while they were in suspended animation or while they were in hypersleep or what have you, that instead of finding an area that's completely ripe for colonization, they found the area has already been colonized by humans from Earth. That it just so happened that after their ships left, they discovered these wormholes, which were made by these the ancients, which they call them like the portal builders. And so they found these portals to the Third Horizon, and there have been people living on the Third Horizon for hundreds of years now when these colony ships get there. So what winds up happening is they take the backing up, one of the colony ships actually never made it. It spins off into space and is never seen again. Now, knowing the way Free League writers are, I have a feeling that we'll probably see the descendants of that second ship at some point, but I'm going to try and make this fairly spoiler-free, so who knows what happened to that second colony ship. So the first colony ship, it was called the Zenith, and so the generation of colonists into the Third Horizon are called the Zenithians. Okay, I know we're getting complicated here, but bear with me, okay? So the Zenithians are the new settlers in the Third Horizon. So they convert the Zenith, the ship, into this big giant space station which orbits Kua. It's a system that is a jungle-like system and what have you. And they turn it into the Coriolis station, which is kind of almost like a Babylon 5 kind of type of station where all these different cultures kind of come in here. There's a senate of all these different factions that come in and speak in it. It's a commerce center for trade and what have you. And while Coriolis has, it definitely shows a period of enlightenment for humanity and hope and what have you. It also has a very dark underbelly where there's all sorts of nefarious factionalism and stuff that's going on and taking place. So that's the basic background of the setting. Now, where does the conflict come from? The conflict comes because there's no aliens. It's important to also note that at some point, the first horizon tries to subjugate the Third Horizon, and there was this great big bloody war that occurs. And what wound up happening is in the last stages of the war, the colonists of the Third Horizon actually collapsed the portals leading to the First and Second Horizons, thus isolating themselves. So the cool thing about the setting is that the Third Horizon here is completely autonomous and completely sealed off from the rest of humanity and everything. So it's the story arc really takes place about the people among here. The culture of the people of the Third Horizon, it's got this, a lot of reviewers have called this Arabian Nights in space. And it has this very Arabic type of feel to it, as far as the clothing, the culture, the names, things like that. This was something I haven't seen before, and I really, really enjoyed it. They're all doing things like the food that they're eating and the way that they are... Oh, see, we're getting interrupted again. Yes, what can I help you with? I'm making a video. You were just looking at it. Okay. Yes, okay, I understand that your dolly wants something, but right now I'm trying to make a video. No, honey, the dolly does not need to look at it. Can you go find something to do? And as soon as I'm done, then I will, okay? This is another reason why when you run your role-playing games, you run them after the kids go to bed, okay? All right, so right back to the Third Horizon here. Hey, I'm just keeping it real here today. That's what happens when you try and film these things on a Sunday afternoon during an epidemic in my home with children, dog, wife, everything. So anyway, So they are completely sealed off, and they're part of this this Arabic type of culture and everything, which I found very interesting. There's a lot of information in the rule book about the setting and about the culture of the people of the Third Horizon. Now, the conflict itself. So everybody's humans. There are 2 alien species that are, for lack of a better term, that they're less advanced than regular humans. Now, there is rules where you can play them and everything, but I am definitely a less is more GM. I am a fan of less is more. So forcing all the players to be human and everything, I really like that, because then it forces them, instead of saying, well, tell me about your character. Oh, my character's an elf. Okay, anything else? In this, because everyone is human and everything, your race and your class and everything, it doesn't define you. It forces you, again, and this is consistent with all the Free League games, it forces you to really get into the backstory about your character and whatnot. So the other thing that was really cool about, and I mean, I hope you can just see this artwork, is just, so this is inside the Coriolis station here, and I loved when I DM'd it, and when I use that term across the board, I say GM, DM, whatever, you guys know what I mean. But when I ran Coriolis, because I primarily run games, I don't play myself, I really liked it. Like, I pictured it dark with just this clutter and all these people, and I would always picture like water just dripping, constant condensation and stuff dripping down, and noise and smells, and very hot. I always pictured it very hot inside there. Inside Coriolis, the Coriolis station and what have you. Okay, so when you're making your characters, and again, just look at this amazing artwork. So, well, let's talk a little bit more about the setting, actually, because I do want to add on to something else. That the society in Coriolis is there's conflict, and what the conflict, where does the conflict come from? If there was no conflict, we wouldn't be playing a role-playing game here. So the conflict comes from it's very factionalized society. So there's two roots of conflict that are, well, actually, there's a number of roots of conflict that are going on in this setting. So one of the things is the conflict between the people that are the old school people, who are the original, they're the people that have originally settled the Third Horizon using the portals and everything. And they have kind of the old school thinking. A lot of them tend to be a lot more traditional and steadfast in faith and things like that. And then you have the more enlightened, the newcomers, which are the Zenithians, was what they call them. And these are the descendants from the people that came from the colony ship. So culturally, you see a big difference between those two types of peoples. Now, the people of Coriolis also are very factionalized in, and let me see if I can find it here, in their much almost like reminds me of the houses of Dune and everything. See, and just look at this amazing artwork. In the Dune setting, you have houses and factions which actively work against each other, and they all have their own interests. Now, who are the bad guys and who are the good guys? Well, really, they're so complicated and so detailed and everything. The answer is that, yeah, you know, there are no really good guys and bad guys. There's really just interests. And so the consortium is, I'm going to go through the major factions at least here. So, and just look at the combination of I just love it. The combination of the old school Arabic looking clothing in this very high tech, you know, and it looks like it even has carpet there. They did such a good job with this book and with the artwork and with the setting there. So anyway, the consortium is a very business-based, almost like a corporation type of setting and everything. They're very much made mostly of newcomers of the Zenithians. They have the Bulletin, which controls most of the media and everything. The Colonial Agency. A huge part of the Third Horizon is unexplored and unsettled. So there's tons of opportunity to search. There's portal ruins, ruins that are made by the portal builders all over the place. This is a pretty cool illustration here, just kind of off the subject here. This is an illustration of the council, which is on Coriolis, and one member of each of these factions sit on the council. Then there's the Free League, which ironically is what the company named itself after. The Free League is a group of traders and merchants and whatnot that have formed themselves into like this pact where they're working to help promote their own interests. The Legion is a very militaristic. It's a very militaristic faction with fleets and large amounts of commandos and warriors. The Legion is kind of hand in hand with the Consortium, the military arm of the Consortium. Even though they are independent, they work directly with the Consortium and have probably the most powerful fleet and the largest standing army out of all the factions. The Syndicate is not an official faction, and so they do not sit on the council per se, but it's exactly what you would think it is the organized crime. It's all the dark crime bosses and everything, which is a huge power unofficially in the setting of Coriolis. For me personally, I love using these guys as villains or as benefactors or what have you. The Zenithian hegemony is a group of courtesans and aristocrats and whatnot. They're all about royal family and tradition. They're very, very cool. This faction almost reminds me of the old traditional houses of Dune. Like the Atreides and the Harkonnens and what have you. The Draconites are this mysterious kind of underground faction. Haven't figured out, are these guys good guys or are they bad guys? But the minute that they hopped off the Zenith, they ran off onto a planet of their own and they kind of formed their own little. Colony and what have you in their secret society. Now the Draconites know that a darkness is coming. And whether they're forming a resistance out on their own, whether they are, trying to marshal forces and gather artifacts and things like that to fight the coming darkness, that's kind of a big mystery. But they're very powerful. And even though they are a super secret society, they still have a representative that sits on the council, which I thought was pretty cool. Church of the Icons. So this is a very religious society in Coriolis and in the Third Horizon. Their religion centers around worshiping these deities called the Icons. Their religion, as I'm reading it, the best way to describe it is kind of like, it reminds me of the Seven from the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones setting and everything, where you have each one is a different god, and like each of the characters will actually choose who is their favored icon, who is their icon that they worship or that they get into. But upon reading the traditions and the religious traditions and things like that, it definitely reminds me a lot of Catholicism as well. So it's pretty interesting. But faith is a huge part of the society. And then also, in addition to the icons, there's what they call the darkness beyond the stars, which is a dark, intelligent, malevolent entity. Very much the Satan type of entity, and it's very real. It's something that is moving towards an apocalypse that some of these factions are feeling and everything, and it actually has a in-game consequence, which we'll talk about. So the Church of the Icons is the religious faction, so think of it as the Vatican and everything. It is a part of the religious authority within the Third Horizon. Alam's Temple, it's a group of people that are philosophers, where they're looking inward and they're trying to explore the human spirit, and they're great thinkers in them. The Order of the Pariah, pretty cool. This is another one that I really think is very interesting, because these are kind of like the Knights Templar. They are a militant arm of where they believe in the icons and everything, but they have their deep-rooted religious traditions and almost fanatic level of faith. So it's very interesting, and we'll talk about it later, but the Order of the Pariah also have very large standing army, very high-tech fleet. And because I would say that my interpretation of this is that the Order of the Pariah and the Consortium are really the two, with the Consortium again hand in hand with the Legion, are the two factions that are really vying for power. Although everyone's kind of maneuvering and everything, these ones, at least militantly, I see as the two big boys on the block and everything. And as a matter of fact, I'll get into the story arcs too, that there is tension between the two factions right now, almost like a Cold War type of setup that's going on. And then the nomads are groups of travelers, just like what you would think were travelers and colonists and everything. Now, the nomads, much like the Syndicate, are kind of an unofficial group, so they don't even have a position on the council and everything. So that is the main factions and everything. Let's talk about the icons, the different icons of the Third Horizon. So here we are. So again, look at the art and just, the culture. There's even pages in here which talk about what the different types of traditional Arabian dress is and everything, and how it translates into the people of the horizon and what have you. But anyway, so let's talk about the icons really quick. So there's 9 icons, and your characters will actually choose which icon they want to worship. So there's this messenger, then there's the dancer, the gambler, and the deckhand, the merchant, the judge, the traveler, Lady of Tears. And then I believe there's one that's called the Faceless One, which you'll always see. Like when you go into a temple, there'll be 9 statues, which are to each one, and then there'll always be one that's empty, and that's the Faceless One. The Faceless One is not the darkness beyond the stars. It's just kind of a dark foreboding. And each one of these icons have, like, if you worship them, then you have almost like the Zodiac. You have certain qualities and what have you with them and stuff. So. Anyway, so let's talk about how the game works when you're going to make your character, because it is a very unique part of the setting as well. So when you make your character, you have to all get together and develop a group concept. So are you going to be traitors? Are you going to be mercenaries? Are you going to be commandos? Are you going to be diplomats? Are you going to be, religious scholars like pilgrims and what have you? So you get to go with that, and you come up, the group along with you as the GM up with a concept that works for everyone. And that brainstorming session that me and my group had at the beginning was absolutely awesome, just trying to come up with the actual premise behind it and everything. Then what you do as a group is you make a spaceship together, and there is a spaceship like rules for creating your own ship. And the cool thing is that the characters don't actually own the ship. What they own is a part of the ship, and then they have to list a benefactor to who they owe the money to and everything. So they're doing jobs and everything, and they're trying to keep up with their payments and what have you. And then from there, everybody gets to make their own player characters. Now, on the ship, so when you're playing this game, you want to play with 5 players, because each player fulfills a specific role on the ship. A lot of the adventures take place off ship, just like all the great shows like The Expanse or what have you. But when they're on the ship, everyone has a specific role to play on the ship. So you have captain, you have pilot, you have sensor operator, you have engineer, and then you have a weapon specialist. Now, if you had, say, 6 people that wanted to play, and you were insane and you wanted to have an extra, then I would say, you're probably okay if you throw another weapons officer and they're another weapons operator. If you have less than that, you can either fill it with NPCs, or there's actually some ways you can have automated systems and everything with the sensors, for instance, or with some. There's rules in here too where some of the roles can, some of the players can assume 2 different roles and what have you. So. Anyhow, then you go in with your character concept. I don't want to get too into the rules here, other than to say that the rules are the standard year 0 engine. And the way that works is, and I'm going to be real basic, so forgive me on this, is that you go ahead and you'll have 4 basic stats, a strength-based stat, agility-based stat, and then like a social stat, and then an intelligence stat. And like the way that it works, and then you'll have skills associating things like close combat, ranged combat, what have you. And the way that it would work is if you were, for instance, trying to punch somebody in close combat, then you would take however many dice was what your strength score is, and then however many dice as your close combat, and you're using just 6-sided dice. And then if you're using a weapon or something like that with you, like a vibro knife or something like that, however many bonus dice that has, and then you'd roll all of these dice together, and anytime you get a 6, then that triggers a success. And that would, like in combat, that would indicate that you've gotten a success, and the person would suffer damage according to whatever the damage of the weapon is. There's also a chance that depending on how many successes you have, that you could inflict a critical hit. And then when you get somebody that's hit on a critical hit, then you roll on like a critical critical hit table, which is here. I don't want to, it's going to be hard for you to read and everything, but it can be anything. You roll 2 what they call a result between 11 and 66. So the higher it is, the worse it is. Obviously, like with a crushed skull, that's your character's going to be instantly killed and what have you. Well, if you just get 11, you're just getting the wind knocked out of you, and you're only stunned for 1 turn and everything. So combat can be unforgiving in Coriolis. The way that you do it with NPCs is just when the NPCs run out of hit points, you don't bother on the rolling for the. Well, I mean they do. The NPCs do suffer from critical hits and everything, but when they're incapacitated, and they're out of the game and everything. So anyway, so let's talk about the different archetypes of the classes of characters that you can have. You can have an artist. Again, because of the deep spiritual nature of the setting, an artist is actually a really great character. The data spider is the very technical, almost like the computer and technology type of experts. And as you can see, again, the art is fantastic in this. The fugitive is someone that is wanted from the law. Now, something that has been happening in the setting of the Third Horizon is that there are these people that are being born with these gifts, and they're able to have dreams about the future. They're able to have clairvoyance. They're able to use these gifts almost like, and it's not as crazy as X-Men, like you can turn your skin to steel type of stuff. The gifts themselves are very subtle, but it's almost like a sign of the pending darkness that is coming and what have you. And a lot of these people are shunned, and even by some of the religious organizations, they're hunted down and killed. So the cool thing about the fugitive class is that if you choose to be like he's a wanted guy, but the cool thing about playing this class is you can choose to actually play one of these people with these budding powers and stuff that are coming out. And again, it's nothing like I can shoot spines out of it. It's much more subtle than that, because again, this is a very hard science fiction. It doesn't really get over the top like that, and that's actually one of the things I really like about it. With all of the factions, and one of the reasons why shows like Dune and Game of Thrones are so popular is because of the factionalism. Obviously, a negotiator has to be a playable class in the game. So an operative can be anything from like a bounty hunter to an assassin, what have you. It's a combat-based class, and it's very self-explanatory. Pilots, obviously, very self-explanatory. It's someone who specializes in flying ships, driving vehicles, what have you. The preachers are cool because, again, faith is a very it's a very prominent part of this society, and it has real world effects in it. So preachers are pretty playable, very cool classes. Scientists is very self-explanatory, but scientists can also be things like engineers as well. So these archetypes are broad enough to where you can make it more specific about your character. A ship worker can be a deckhand type of character, or just someone who works in space and what have you. It can even be like an officer on a ship, like like a Ripley from the Alien series and everything. So soldier is much more of the mercenary and grunt, a little more of the sledgehammer type of fighter versus the operative character. While the operative focuses on agility and stealth, the soldier is much more about, he's much more the tanking type of character. Trailblazer's like an explorer, someone who is a scout or maybe even a hunter of aliens and what have you. So anyway, so that's it. We also have to talk about a mechanic called darkness points. So my exposure to something like darkness points the first time I was very into the 2D, the Modifius Conan, where you get this thing called Dune. And this is very similar type of idea. So what you have is you have darkness points. And the players will, if you fail a roll, because rolling sixes is hard. I know, I play miniature games and everything, and I can tell you that rolling sixes are hard. If you give me 6 dice and you tell me you need to roll 1 6, I may or may not do it. It just depends. So anyway, in this game, if you go to make a roll and you miss completely, your character can pray. You have to describe about how you pray to your icon and how your icon would give you another shot and everything. And what happens is you go ahead and get to re-roll it. You can do it once by keeping all your... The other thing that helps too is if you get 1 6, but let's say you're wanting to do a really difficult task and everything, then you can, and you want multiple sixes, multiple successes for doing something that's particularly hard, such as like someone is about to fall over a cliff and you're making a dive and trying to catch them, or maybe you're trying to repair the engines in the middle of a battle and everything. But anyway, for whatever reason, the GM has decided that it's going to take multiple successes for you to make this very difficult roll. Then you may want to elect to, even if you get 1 or 2 6s, you may want to re-roll the remaining dice. And you do this again by praying to the icons. Now, what is praying to the icons? You can only do it once. And then what happens is it gives the GM this darkness point. The darkness point is something, it's a currency, an in-game currency that the GM uses to create challenges for the players. Sometimes it can be just spending darkness points to make them run out of ammo at a critical moment. Sometimes it can be to activate particularly nasty abilities that creatures or NPCs have. It is a literal way that the darkness beyond the stars is trying to manipulate and bring about its evil coming. The way that I kind of see it in the game is that if you call upon the icons to help you, it comes at a cost. And what that cost is that as you kind of get the forces of the old world involved in the new world, then it almost creates a temptation and it invites the darkness beyond the stars to come in. For instance, what I use, you can even improvise using the darkness points and what have you. Let's say that you have a villain that is trying to get away and what have you, and your players are they're on top of it, but you want this villain to get away so that you can use them later on and everything. You can sacrifice a generous amount of darkness points to, even in the midst they just slip away, or they have a trap door that they jump down, what have you, something like that. Something that maybe theatrically you might just go ahead and do in the past, but it helps it so that, by having a currency that you have to spend, you're less fudging the story and actually still making it an essential challenge. An example of the one that comes to mind here where I've used a darkness point was after my group is a group of merchants, traders. They also do couriers for very high ranking, very important people, VIPs and whatnot. Well, anyway, so they were transporting this extremely expensive honey, and it was like a delicacy, and it was worth a lot of money and what have you. So they ran into some rebels that had tried to, acquire their cargo for the good of the cause and what have you. In a fight wound up happening and what have you. They managed to drive these rebels off, but what wound up happening is I threw a darkness point out there and I say, there's a, the hull has the storage hull has been in. The cargo space has been penetrated. And then when they went in and they checked on it, they found that several canisters of this honey had been penetrated and was leaking all over the floor and had been completely ruined and what have you. So I took away part of their, I created a problem for them where they had to hurry up and try and seal it up and save up as much as they can. And then we had a real world consequence where their haul, they didn't make as much money as they wanted to. So anyway, loosely, again, I don't want to get too much into the background and everything, but that is how darkness points work and everything. So anyway, so the group makes the entire concept. So this is not a game where it's 5 individuals that meet in a bar and decide that they're going to go. This game itself and everything, you're creating the story from the ground up with your players. The other thing, this book is so let's just talk about the components itself. This book is it's like an inch thick and everything, and it is filled with beautiful illustrations, lots of information about the factions, and then there's about your daily life in the horizon itself, and then it's just got tons of stuff about. It's filled with information about the worlds and the factions and the planets and the colonies and everything. It's just an amazing amount of information. I have read this book cover to cover once, but I am constantly, if you look at my book, it's all beat up because I am constantly reading it. I'm rereading the chapters and stuff like that because there is just so much in this. And that is what is brilliant, is that my Coriolis campaign is not necessarily going to be the same as the one that you run or the one that somebody else runs. So it's an amazing wealth of setting. And then it even has, let me see if I can find some aliens for you in here. It's got some very dark, so the beasts and the Djinn. So mysticism is something that they all believe in the Third Horizon, but yet it's not necessarily. And see, this is one of the sentient races that I was talking about. You'll see these guys all over Coriolis, but definitely not as equals. They live in the underparts and what have you, but they're definitely a less advanced species and what have you. So I don't want to give off too many spoilers about the different creatures, but there is a whole section in here about the numerous creatures and hazards that the players will encounter in the Third Horizon, and they are very cool, very well written, and illustrated with gorgeous illustrations here. So that book in itself, you have everything that you need to run Coriolis with this book here. However, some things I will tell you that I would recommend picking up. If you've watched my other videos, you know I am a huge fan of these maps. I put this map out in front of my players, and they're mapping each one of these portals, which portal you have to go through and where you want to go. And then obviously when we got onto Coriolis, they loved looking at the station and the sub-levels, and it's got these great illustrations of what it looks like on the inside. And, my players hover over the map and just look at the map. They absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan of the GM screen. The GM screen has all of the combat tables that you would need in most RPGs and what have you. It's very handy. The front of it has this nebula with these ships on it, which is just, again, really moody. I absolutely loved it. The other thing that I really like about this screen in particular, so the setting, as I said before, is based off of Arabic culture. I am Scotch-Irish. I do not, I do not do well with trying to come up with really cool Arabic sounding names on the fly. So this one has an NPC generator, and it's got a listing of all these different names that you can use, so that when they meet a random spice merchant on Coriolis and they want to know his name and everything, oh well, okay, it's Scallop and everything, what have you. I am very fortunate too in my group. I have 2 veterans that have been to the sandbox multiple times, and so being both going to Iraq and Afghanistan, they are very naturalized as far as being able to pronounce very Arabic sounding names, and then they've also have a deep understanding of the culture and things, the things that we don't even think about, like when you go into a tavern, say in Coriolis, you're going to be sitting on pillows on the floor and everything, on a table, and what that food smells like, what kind of snacks would they have in a little bowl out in the plate, do the research and everything, and it's one of the things that is very different that I really like about this setting. The first book that I bought, in addition to the regular book, is the Atlas Compendium. And the reason why is I like to make up a lot of my adventures. I use some of the ones in the book and everything. But this is just where the initial book has a ton of information about the systems and the colonies and the unexplored areas and, the portal builders and what have you. This just expounds upon that and gives you a whole bunch of extra information to make your own adventures about and what have you. The scenarios I like them. They're very well written. I usually find that most of these scenarios have really good meat and potatoes, and then I dump gravy all over it. I make it darker. I kind of make it a little bit more mine. So I'm not going to talk too much about the adventures that I have. The Dying Ship is very much almost like an Alien type of scenario where there's a ship that is a derelict, and the players have to come on and figure out what happened on the ship and overcome the obstacles of that. This is a pretty good one. I like that. It's a good starter adventure. The Last Voyage of the Ghazili was very interesting. So this one here, it almost reminds me of, and I'm going to date myself right here, it almost reminds me of the Poseidon Adventure, where the characters wake up on this giant rescue ship, and they have amnesia and what have you, and the ship is in crisis. They're running from compartment to compartment trying to figure out what happened on board the ship and how to escape the ship. It is really cool. The other thing that's really cool about this is that in these Free League titles, and Coriolis is no different, all these adventures tie to a big, larger narrative that is a world-changing story that the players are playing out in. And Last Voyage of the Ghazili definitely has events that are world-changing, like scenario-changing, not scenario, but setting-changing events. And then it comes to their first campaign book, which is The Emissary Lost, The Mercy of the Icons. This is cool. I have been reading this. Haven't read it all the way through. I'm still working on it because, honestly, my players haven't played the other scenarios yet. But as a campaign book, this is very well done. And like I said before, it keeps up with the Free League stuff about changing. This changes the setting forever. So you want to play these other smaller adventures first and then end with this one here, which is part 1. And oh boy, I wish I could talk about it and give you some spoilers on it, but I don't want to give the spoilers out because you may have potential players here that are looking at this. But UGMs, I highly recommend this. This is a very cool, very epic role playing, and again, it is a thick, it's a thick book, and it is a series of small scenarios in it which make part of a very much larger campaign. But again, this is not where you start, this is where you end. You do these other adventures first, maybe do some that you make up on your own, and this is where you're going to want to end your campaign, and then start a whole new campaign based off of the major changes that occur in this. It's very cool. So that is Coriolis in a nutshell. It ran a lot longer. I babbled on a lot longer than I would have liked. If you have questions, leave me questions in the leave me questions in the comments here and everything. Again, I apologize for the technical, the primitive technical nature of my YouTube channel. And as always, whenever you're watching my YouTube channels, there's going to be interruptions from children, dogs, what you name it, But should you buy Coriolis? I will say that if you haven't figured it out by now that I absolutely love this game, then you're not paying attention, or you fell asleep about 5 minutes in. I absolutely love Coriolis. My group loves Coriolis. It's very hard to say is this my favorite game? That's a tough one. I don't know if I would say that it's completely my favorite, but I will tell you that it is definitely one of my favorite games, if not my favorite. It's definitely a contender. Great game. Get your group together. If you're looking for, again, this is the love child of Dune, The Expanse, and Firefly. And I think you're going to love this game if you like it. So, again, thanks for watching. Leave me any questions or comments, and I will respond to them as quick as possible. Thanks again for watching Bland Gaming, the most boring internet channel, most boring YouTube channel on the interweb. Take care until next time.